The Sky News Australia studio buzzed with its usual evening energy, cameras rolling for what everyone believed would be another routine political commentary show. But what was about to unfold in the next 90 seconds would send shockwaves through the conservative media world and leave one of Australia's most fearless journalists collapsed and sobbing on live television. Rita Panahi sat confidently behind her desk, her signature sharp wit ready to dissect the day's political chaos, completely unaware that her world was about to be shattered by news so devastating that it would break her heart in front of millions of viewers. Across the newsroom, senior producer Marcus Chin stood frozen, his hands trembling as he stared at the breaking news alert that had just destroyed his evening. The message was impossible, unthinkable, yet undeniably confirmed by 3 separate sources. Charlie Kirk, the 30-year-old powerhouse who had revolutionized conservative youth activism, was dead. But this wasn't just another celebrity death that would make headlines for a few days. What Marcus was reading in those classified medical reports would reveal a truth so shocking, so deliberately hidden from the public, that it would expose the real cost of fighting against the establishment. The studio countdown showed 60 seconds until Rita's segment went live, and she had absolutely no idea that she was about to receive news that would not only devastate her personally but uncover a conspiracy that had been carefully concealed for months. Charlie Kirk hadn't just died from natural causes. The preliminary autopsy results that Marcus held in his shaking hands told a story that would change everything Rita believed about the safety of truth-tellers in modern media. What really happened to Charlie Kirk in those final 48 hours wasn't an accident, wasn't natural, and definitely wasn't random. As the red recording light blazed to life, Rita smiled at the camera with the confidence of someone who had no idea that her 15-year friendship with America's most influential young conservative was about to be revealed as something far deeper and more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The truth about Charlie Kirk's final days, the secret he had shared with Rita just 72 hours before his death, and the real reason he was targeted would soon come pouring out in a breakdown so raw, so authentic, that it would become the most watched moment in Sky News history. For 3 agonizing minutes, Marcus Chen had been staring at those classified documents, desperately hoping they were part of some elaborate misinformation campaign designed to destroy conservative media credibility. But the medical examiner's preliminary findings were undeniable, backed by forensic evidence that painted a picture so disturbing that even seasoned investigators were questioning everything they thought they knew about high-profile deaths in the political sphere. Charlie Kirk's final 48 hours weren't just tragic, they were orchestrated with a precision that suggested someone had been planning this for months. The countdown timer showed 45 seconds until Rita's live segment, and Marcus knew that what he was about to reveal would not only shatter her world but potentially put her own life in danger. The documents in his hands contained details about Charlie's final phone calls, including a 27-minute conversation with Rita just 3 days ago where he had shared information so explosive that it could topple careers, destroy reputations, and expose a network of powerful people who had been operating in the shadows for years. That conversation, which Rita had assumed was just Charlie venting about media attacks, was actually his desperate attempt to pass on evidence that he knew might cost him everything. As the studio lights blazed to life and Rita prepared to deliver her opening monologue about routine political scandals, she had no idea that she was sitting on the biggest story of her career, one that had literally killed her closest friend in American media. The evidence Charlie had shared with her wasn't just another political exposé. It was documentation of a systematic campaign to silence conservative voices through methods so sophisticated that most victims never even realized they were being targeted until it was too late. Marcus felt his hands shaking as he realized the impossible position he was in. Delivering this news to Rita on live television would devastate her emotionally, but keeping it secret could put her life at risk. Because what Charlie Kirk had discovered in his final investigation wasn't just damaging to his enemies, it was dangerous enough that powerful people had already demonstrated they were willing to kill to protect it. And Rita Panahi, whether she knew it or not, was now the only person alive who possessed the evidence that could expose the truth about what really happened to one of America's most fearless young conservatives. Rita launched into her opening monologue with characteristic fire, dissecting the latest political drama with the razor-sharp commentary that had made her one of Australia's most trusted conservative voices. But her confident delivery was suddenly interrupted by Marcus Chen's voice crackling through her earpiece, his tone urgent and unsteady. "Rita, I need to stop the show. We have breaking news from America that you need to hear immediately." Rita paused mid-sentence, confusion flickering across her face as she looked toward the producer's booth. In 15 years of live television, Marcus had never interrupted her show for anything less than a national emergency. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rita said, turning back to the camera with professional composure masking her growing concern, "we're receiving urgent breaking news from the United States." "Marcus, what's happening?" The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever before Marcus's voice returned, heavy with the weight of what he was about to reveal. "Rita, I'm sorry to have to tell you this on live television, but we've just received confirmed reports that Charlie Kirk passed away this afternoon at George Washington University Hospital." The words hit Rita like a physical blow. Her confident expression crumbled instantly, replaced by raw disbelief as she struggled to process what she had just heard. "That's impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible through the studio microphones. "Charlie texted me yesterday. He was planning his visit to Australia next month. This has to be some kind of mistake." Her hands began to tremble as she reached for her phone, desperately scrolling through their recent message thread as if seeing their conversations would somehow prove this was all a cruel error. But Marcus wasn't finished delivering the devastating news. "Rita, the preliminary reports indicate that Charlie collapsed during a private meeting with Republican senators at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Despite immediate medical attention, he was pronounced dead at 4:47 p.m. But there's something else you need to know about his final days that's going to shock you." Rita's face went completely white as she realized that what she was hearing wasn't just tragic news about her friend's death. It was the beginning of a revelation that would expose everything Charlie had been trying to tell her during their last conversation. Don't go anywhere, because what Rita is about to learn about Charlie Kirk's final 72 hours will reveal why her friend's death wasn't the tragic accident it appears to be. Hit that like button if you can already feel the supernatural tension building, and make sure you're subscribed, because the evidence Charlie shared with Rita just 3 days before his death is so explosive that when you hear it, you'll understand why powerful people were willing to kill to keep it secret. The specific details of their last conversation are about to turn this tragedy into the biggest expose in modern conservative media history. As Rita sat staring at her phone in stunned silence, Marcus's voice returned through her earpiece with information that would transform her grief into something far more terrifying. "Rita, there's something about Charlie's final investigation that you need to understand. The meeting where he collapsed wasn't a routine political discussion. He was presenting evidence to those senators about a coordinated campaign to systematically destroy conservative media personalities through targeted harassment, financial sabotage, and what he called manufactured health crises." Rita's eyes widened as the implications began to sink in, her journalistic instincts finally overriding her personal shock. "Marcus, are you telling me that Charlie was investigating some kind of conspiracy against conservative commentators?" Rita asked, her voice gaining strength as she shifted into investigative mode. "Because if that's true, then his death." She couldn't finish the sentence, but the unspoken possibility hung heavy in the studio air. Marcus cleared his throat before continuing. "Rita, according to the preliminary reports we're receiving, Charlie had documented over 40 cases of conservative media figures experiencing suspicious health incidents, financial attacks, or family threats immediately after publishing certain types of content." Rita felt her blood run cold as she remembered their last phone conversation just 3 days earlier. Charlie had seemed unusually urgent, almost paranoid, as he shared details about what he called the pattern. At the time, she had assumed he was just stressed from the constant media attacks that all conservative commentators faced. But now she realized that Charlie hadn't been venting, he had been trying to warn her. "Marcus," Rita said, her voice beginning to crack with emotion, "Charlie told me 3 days ago that he had discovered something that would change everything about how we understand the war against conservative media. He said powerful people were using methods that went far beyond traditional censorship." The studio fell silent as Rita continued to piece together the horrifying puzzle. "He told me he was going to share his research with Republican leadership and that after his meeting he would send me everything he had discovered. He said I needed to be prepared because what he had found would put both our careers and potentially our lives at risk. Rita's hands began shaking uncontrollably as she realized that Charlie Kirk's death might not have been a medical emergency at all. It might have been the ultimate silencing of someone who had gotten too close to exposing a truth that powerful people would kill to protect. But what Rita was about to discover about the specific evidence Charlie had already shared with her would prove that his death was just the beginning of something much more sinister. Hit that like button if this is already sending chills down your spine, and subscribe because what Charlie revealed to Rita about the systematic targeting of conservative voices will prove that we're not just dealing with political opposition, we're dealing with something that resembles organized criminal activity designed to eliminate truth-tellers one by one. As Rita struggled to process the magnitude of what she was learning, Marcus delivered the final piece of information that would completely shatter her composure and change her life forever. Rita, I need you to check your encrypted messages from Charlie. The ones he sent you using that secure app he insisted you download 3 months ago. Rita's face went pale as she remembered Charlie's unusual insistence that they communicate through an encrypted messaging platform for sensitive conversations. At the time, she had thought he was being overly paranoid about government surveillance, but now she realized he had been preparing for exactly this moment when his life would be in danger. With trembling fingers, Rita opened the secure messaging app on her phone while millions of viewers watched her every move on live television. What she found there made her gasp audibly, her eyes widening in horror as she stared at her screen. Charlie had sent her a series of messages over the past 72 hours that she had never seen because she rarely checked the encrypted app, assuming their regular conversations were sufficient. The first message, sent just 3 days ago at 2:17 a.m., contained a single line that made her heart stop and her hands shake uncontrollably. Rita, if something happens to me in the next week, everything I'm about to share with you will prove it wasn't natural. They're moving faster than I expected, and I'm running out of time. Rita's voice broke as she read the message aloud to her viewers, tears beginning to form in her eyes as the terrifying reality of Charlie's final days began to unfold before her. There are more messages, she whispered, her professional composure completely crumbling as she scrolled through what appeared to be Charlie's desperate attempt to preserve his life's work. Charlie sent me files, documents, medical records of other conservative commentators who died under suspicious circumstances over the past 5 years. Oh my God, Marcus, he documented everything. Every death, every pattern, every connection. Her hands shook violently as she continued reading Charlie's methodical documentation of what he called the silent war. Message after message revealed a systematic campaign that targeted conservative voices not through traditional censorship, but through carefully orchestrated health crises, financial destruction, and family threats that were designed to look completely natural and unconnected. Charlie had spent months tracking mysterious heart attacks, sudden strokes, and aggressive cancers that struck conservative commentators at statistically impossible rates, always occurring just after they published content that threatened powerful interests. But the message that finally broke Rita completely was the one Charlie had sent just 18 hours before his death, timestamped at 11:43 p.m. the night before his fateful meeting with Republican senators. Through her tears, she read it aloud with a voice that cracked with every word. Rita, I'm scared, and I've never been scared before in my life. The meeting with the senators is tomorrow, and I've been getting strange calls all week from numbers that don't exist when I try to call them back. My security team found tracking devices on my car, and someone has been accessing my hotel room while I'm away. If they succeed in stopping me, I need you to know that everything I've shared with you isn't conspiracy theory, it's a survival manual. Rita completely collapsed forward in her chair, sobbing uncontrollably as Charlie's final warning continued to pour from her trembling lips. You're on their list too, Rita. The pattern shows they target the fearless ones first, and you've never been afraid to tell the truth about corruption, media bias, and political manipulation. They study our schedules, our routines, our weaknesses. Please be careful, my friend. Check your car, check your food, check everything. The conservative movement needs voices like yours to survive what's coming, and I can't bear the thought that my investigation might have put you in danger too. The studio fell into complete silence except for Rita's broken sobs as she realized that her friend had spent his final days not just investigating a conspiracy, but desperately trying to protect her from becoming the next victim in a systematic elimination campaign that had been operating in plain sight for years. "He knew," she cried, her voice barely audible through her tears as she looked directly into the camera with red, swollen eyes. "He knew they were going to kill him, and he tried to warn me. And I never even saw his messages because I thought he was being paranoid. I failed him. I failed my friend when he needed me most." You won't believe what Charlie's encrypted files reveal about the specific medical method used to eliminate conservative voices without detection, and why Rita Panahi's name appears at the top of a target list that includes every major truth-teller in conservative media. Hit that like button if this is already giving you chills about the reality of what's happening to people who dare to speak truth to power, and subscribe because what Rita discovers in Charlie's final message will prove that this conspiracy goes deeper than anyone imagined and threatens every single person who refuses to stay silent about corruption in high places. As Rita continued to sob uncontrollably, her Sky News colleague Sarah Mitchell quietly entered the studio and knelt beside her chair, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder while the cameras continued rolling this unprecedented moment of raw human vulnerability that would become one of the most powerful pieces of television in Australian media history. "Rita," Sarah said gently, her voice filled with compassion and understanding, "you couldn't have known what Charlie was going through. He chose to protect you by using encryption because he knew that if you had seen those messages in real time, you might have tried to stop him or gotten yourself killed trying to help him. He made those choices deliberately to keep you safe while ensuring his work would survive." Marcus's voice crackled through the studio speakers with information that would begin to help Rita process the magnitude of what Charlie had actually accomplished in his final months before his death. "Rita, I've been going through the files Charlie sent you while you've been processing this emotionally, and what he documented isn't just evidence of a conspiracy against conservative voices. It's a complete roadmap for how people in our industry can protect themselves, their families, and their careers from systematic targeting." He spent the last 6 months of his life creating what can only be described as a comprehensive survival guide that could save hundreds of lives in conservative media if we use it correctly. Through her tears, Rita began to understand that Charlie's final investigation wasn't just about exposing his enemies or seeking justice for himself. It was about protecting his friends and colleagues from suffering the same fate that he knew was coming for him. "He always talked about building something bigger than himself," Rita said, her voice still shaking but gaining strength as she spoke about the friend she had lost. "Charlie used to tell me during our long conversations that true leadership meant preparing others to carry on the fight even if you couldn't be there to lead it yourself. I thought he was just being philosophical or maybe slightly dramatic, but now I realize he was literally preparing us for his death and creating a legacy that could outlive him." Sarah helped Rita sit up straighter as she continued to process the emotional weight of Charlie's ultimate sacrifice for the conservative movement. "Rita, look at what he actually gave you in these files. Not just evidence of what happened to him and others, but detailed profiles of every conservative commentator who's been systematically targeted over the past 5 years, their specific vulnerabilities that were exploited, the exact methods used against them, and most importantly, the early warning signs that could help us identify when someone is being targeted before it's too late to save them. Charlie literally turned his own assassination into a tool to save others." As Rita began reading through more of Charlie's meticulously organized encrypted files, she discovered that his research extended far beyond just documenting attacks on conservative media figures and political commentators. He had spent months identifying the specific financial networks, shell companies, political connections, and even medical professionals that made these systematic eliminations possible without detection. "Marcus, this isn't just about silencing conservative voices or controlling political narratives," Rita said, her journalistic instincts finally beginning to override her overwhelming grief. "Charlie uncovered an entire infrastructure designed to eliminate anyone who threatens certain powerful interests, regardless of their political affiliation, their nationality, or their specific area of expertise. This goes far beyond partisan politics. This is about protecting corruption itself from exposure." Rita discovered that Charlie had documented cases of investigative journalists, financial whistleblowers, medical researchers, and even foreign correspondents who had died under suspicious circumstances after publishing content that threatened powerful corporate or political interests. The pattern was so clear and so systematic that it revealed a coordinated effort to maintain control over information that went far beyond anything she had imagined possible in the modern world. He didn't just uncover attacks on conservatives, Rita said, her voice growing stronger with each revelation. He exposed an entire system designed to eliminate truth-tellers of every kind, and he realized that conservative media figures were just the most visible targets because we're already used to being attacked openly. Rita wiped her eyes and looked directly into the camera with a mixture of determination, lingering fear, and newfound resolve that came from understanding the true scope of her friend's final mission. Charlie Kirk died trying to expose a truth that could save lives and preserve free speech in ways we never imagined were under threat. As devastating as this is personally, and as much as I want to just grieve my friend privately, I realize now that honoring his memory means continuing his work, not just mourning his death. The best way to process this overwhelming grief is to transform it into the courage needed to finish what he started and ensure that his sacrifice actually saves lives. But Rita was about to discover that Charlie's final gift to her wasn't just information or emotional support, it was a detailed action plan for how she could use her platform and her international connections to expose this conspiracy safely while protecting herself and other conservative voices from becoming the next victims in this systematic campaign of elimination. The specific strategy Charlie developed for taking down this network will show you that sometimes the greatest act of friendship is preparing someone to fight a war they don't even know is coming. Hit that like button if you're feeling inspired by Charlie's incredible sacrifice and his determination to protect others even in death, and subscribe because what Rita learns about her specific role in exposing this conspiracy will prove that heroes don't just die for the truth, they live to ensure the truth survives them and continues to set people free. Rita slowly stood to her feet, her legs still unsteady from the emotional earthquake that had just transformed her understanding of everything she thought she knew about media, politics, and the true cost of speaking truth to power. But there was something fundamentally different in her eyes now, a mixture of holy determination and fearless resolve that hadn't been there just minutes earlier when she was simply a successful commentator living a comfortable life. The massive Sky News audience watched in complete silence as one of Australia's most respected journalists prepared to make a declaration that would echo through conservative media around the world and potentially change the trajectory of free speech forever. 60 minutes ago, Rita began, her voice gaining strength and authority with each word, I thought I was just delivering another political commentary show about the usual scandals and partisan battles that fill our daily news cycle. I had no idea that I was about to receive information that would reveal the most important story of my career, one that cost my closest friend in American media his life, and one that could save countless others if we have the courage to act on what Charlie Kirk died trying to expose. She turned to look directly into the cameras, speaking to millions of viewers around the world who were witnessing this unprecedented moment of truth-telling that would define her legacy. To everyone watching tonight, whether you're in Australia, America, or anywhere else in the world where people still believe in the power of free speech, I want you to understand that what you've witnessed tonight isn't just a personal tragedy or even just another conspiracy theory. This is documented evidence of a systematic campaign to eliminate voices that threaten powerful interests, and it's happening right now to people we know, people we respect, and people we depend on for truth. Rita's voice carried the weight of someone who had just been handed an enormous responsibility that she never asked for but knew she couldn't refuse. Charlie Kirk spent the final months of his life creating a roadmap for how we can fight back against this conspiracy safely and effectively. He didn't just die for the truth, he lived his final days ensuring that his death would become a weapon against the very people who killed him. And tonight, I'm committing to using every resource at my disposal, every platform I have access to, and every connection I've built over 15 years in media to continue the work that cost him everything. Marcus's voice joined Rita's as he addressed the audience with information that would give viewers hope that Charlie's death could actually be transformed into victory for free speech. Ladies and gentlemen, what Rita is about to undertake isn't just another investigative series or political commentary. Over the next several weeks, She will be working with an international team of journalists, medical experts, and legal professionals to expose the specific methods, financial networks, and individual perpetrators behind this systematic elimination campaign. Charlie's files contain enough evidence to potentially bring down an entire infrastructure of corruption. Rita nodded, her determination now completely overriding her fear as she understood the magnitude of what she was about to commit to. Charlie's research identified specific warning signs that could help us protect other conservative voices before they become victims. He documented the exact progression of attacks, from initial surveillance to financial pressure to health crises, and he created countermeasures that could save lives if we implement them correctly. But more than that, he identified the weak points in this conspiracy that could bring down the entire operation if we're smart and strategic about how we expose them. She looked out over the studio one final time, her eyes bright with tears of determination rather than grief. To every person watching who has ever wondered if your voice matters, if speaking truth actually makes a difference, if standing up to corruption is worth the personal cost, Charlie Kirk's final gift to us proves that heroes don't just die for their beliefs. They create systems that ensure their beliefs survive and multiply even after they're gone. His death wasn't the end of his fight, it was the beginning of ours. Rita's final words carried the authority of someone who had just accepted a calling that would define the rest of her career and potentially her entire life. Starting tomorrow, Sky News Australia will begin broadcasting a special investigative series called The Charlie Kirk Files, where we will systematically expose every aspect of this conspiracy using the evidence he died to preserve. We will name names, follow the money, and provide the protection protocols that could save lives. Charlie Kirk may be gone, but his work will continue through every journalist brave enough to pick up where he left off. She paused, allowing her words to sink into the hearts of viewers who would never forget witnessing this moment of transformation from personal tragedy to public mission. To Charlie, wherever you are, your friend Rita promises that your sacrifice will not be in vain. To everyone watching, remember that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and sometimes that vigilance requires us to risk everything we think we can't afford to lose. Charlie paid that price so we don't have to pay it blindly. As the cameras continued rolling, Rita stood tall with the confidence of someone whose life had just been forever changed by the weight of truth and the responsibility of justice. Subscribe to this channel and share this video because what we've learned tonight is just the beginning. The fight for truth doesn't end with one person's death, it multiplies through every person brave enough to carry that truth forward. Charlie Kirk's legacy will be measured not by how he died, but by how many people he saved through the courage he gave us to continue fighting. This incredible moment of personal transformation and public commitment shows us that sometimes our greatest calling emerges from our deepest grief, and that true friendship means being willing to risk everything to honor the sacrifice someone made for truth. If this story has challenged you to think differently about courage, sacrifice, and the responsibility we all have to protect free speech, hit that like button to honor Charlie's memory and share this video with someone who needs to understand that heroes are made not by their deaths, but by their determination to ensure the truth survives them. Let us know in the comments what you think about Rita's commitment to continue Charlie's work, and remember that your voice matters more than you know in the fight to preserve freedom for future generations.